Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Tim Hart, branch manager of Van Dyke Mortgage, right here in Fort Myers. Welcome to another episode of the Heartbeat Show podcast. So, today we are going audio only, and I'm very excited about this. We have the Everglades Skunk Ape expert himself, Dave Shealy. He is on the line and ready to talk to us. Dave, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good, Tim. And yourself?
Yeah, you're doing great. Doing great. I'm really excited about this. Bummed the video part didn't work out, but it's understandable for where you're located, right out there in the Everglades. So I get it. No biggie. But I wanted to bring you on today, Dave, because you are a skunk ape expert, and I'm a fan. Just always been amazed by the skunk ape, Bigfoot, aliens, you name it, the stuff, the unknown that we don't know about, and I thought it'd be really cool to be able to talk to you about your experiences with it and get some firsthand knowledge of the skunk ape. Sound good?
Yeah, I would be the one to talk to about that.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's what I heard. So if you don't mind, for anyone listening to this, because I thought it was kind of funny before we did this, or once we set it up, I asked, I don't know, 10 or 20 people, hey, I'm doing an interview with Dave Shealy. It's about the skunk ape. And, there's still people out there that don't know, about the skunk ape story. So if you don't mind, would you mind, if you don't mind telling the audience, what is the skunk ape? And then let's roll into your experiences with them.
Yeah, no problem. We can do that. Just a quick rundown. I live in the Big Cypress National Preserve. The Big Cypress borders Everglades National Park. It's on the northern border, and it's as big as the park. It's a huge area. The national park and the preserve and the local water conservation areas make up the largest wild area east of the Mississippi. A lot of people think of Florida as maybe being a little small and not being able to hold a population of the large primates, which that's what I'm going to get into now. I grew up in the town of Ochopee, and at the time there were a lot of residents nearby. There were 500 residents, which is, Ochopee is a pretty big town by my standards. Well, in 1971, the Big Cypress Preserve was created, and there was a huge move to push people out of here and buy land, and they bought everybody out. So I'm pretty much the last one here. My neighbors are Indians. So growing up here as a kid, it was common to hear stories of the skunk ape. As far back as I can remember, if we'd go to visit folks that lived nearby, the topic would come up. Well, when I was 10 years old, my brother and I were out behind the park that I run here, and my brother saw something that looked to him like a skunk ape. He's older than me. And so I couldn't see. The grass was too high, and he had to pick me up where I could see out over the grass. And about 100 yards away, there was an animal covered with hair. It looked like a man. And it was what we had been told a skunk ape is. So that was my first sighting or encounter, is when I was 10 years old. But now I'm 55. Tomorrow is my birthday. But since I was 10 and the research I've done, I've been lucky enough to spot skunk apes 3 times here in the Big Cypress. It's my belief that there's some type of primate at this point. I've been doing this a long time. We'll go around just some basic features and characteristics of a skunk ape, and then compare it to a Bigfoot real quick. Well, skunk apes look like a Bigfoot. If you were to be here in the Everglades and see a skunk ape, you would probably tell who you were with, or the first person you saw, hey, I just saw Bigfoot. But actually, there's some differences. Most Bigfoot sightings are of an animal that's 800 pounds or more, but skunk apes are much lighter, 300-400 pounds, half the size of the reported Bigfoot sightings. At a glance, they look like a Bigfoot would look, you would think, or a monkey walking on 2 legs. And They can be reddish in color. The main thing that is the difference is the tracks. The track of a skunk ape is a 4-toed track. A track has 5 toes. So that's one of the main differences that's very apparent when I'm tracking one of these animals. And as far as the habits go, skunk apes spend a lot of time in trees. About 90% of this area is covered with water in the summertime. And so they've taken to the trees, and they make these beds that I'm becoming more and more aware over the years are very similar to orangutan beds. The Park Service is actually doing a study on some of the beds I found. They brought in some orangutan experts to see if it possibly is. So there you go. It's a large primate, lives here in the Everglades, resembles a Bigfoot, and nobody really knows what they are. I do know that we have between 7 and 9 living currently here in the Big Cypress National Preserve.
Okay. So then a couple quick questions on that is, are there pictures of the beds that you're talking about?
I have pictures in my files. I don't have any pictures right now out to the public on that, but I did actually capture a skunk ape on film in 2000, and so there's footage of the actual animal as well.
Yeah, do you mind, you said you've seen a skunk ape 3 times, and I would love, can you tell us, about, was one of them when you were 10?
Sure. One when I was young.
Okay.
The next one was it was about 1990 on the Turner River Road, which is located about a mile away from me. If you're traveling US 41 and you go up Turner River Road, about a mile up that road going to the north, it goes 18 miles into the preserve and dead ends. But about a mile up it, there was a lot of sightings. There were over 200 sightings in like a 60-day period. Tour buses loaded with people coming out of Naples, Florida, just for an Everglades sightseeing adventure, came face to face with the skunk ape. So, of course, that got my attention. There were actually some photographs that were taken by people on the buses. I don't have any of those. And one of them was the one I did see was pretty bad. It looked like a guy running with a suitcase to me, but but that's what sparked my interest again. So what I did is a couple of things. One of the things I did was when the sightings started, I started putting bait out. I started putting dog food and corn and beans and stuff out, and it started getting picked up. And that's when the sightings really increased. And I started becoming concerned about the safety of the animal that I was studying. So I decided to stop feeding, and it went away. So that's when I set up a tower stand on the marsh behind my campground, exactly where I had seen the skunk ape as a kid, because I figured that they would follow the same path. And I was 6 months into it. I had been in the stand for 6 months, and I heard something splashing in the water, and it was toward like a man walking. And it was getting in the evening time. I was I looked up, and in front of me, at the same place I saw it as a kid, there was another skunk ape. I don't know if it was the same one, but it was traveling the same area. It's a little higher. It's across the marsh, but it's a little shallow right in this passage, and panthers and deer use it. So it's kind of a crossing, a natural crossing. But it passed in front of me. I think I took 27 photographs. Now, that was on the Unsolved Mysteries. They run it all the time. You may have seen the Unsolved Mysteries segment of that. So there was 27 photographs of an animal 100 yards, maybe 150 yards away from me. And they were really interesting. So I saw it as a kid, and then I saw it, it was around 1991, that time. And then in 2000, about maybe a half a mile from where I took the pictures, that's when I was out scouting. I heard something, and a deer ran out of a hammock. You can see this video on YouTube, Dave Shealy's skunk ape footage. Mm-hmm. And a deer came bolting out of a hammock, and behind it, a large animal, like I thought it was a bear at first, and then it was upright like the skunk apes I'd seen. And I filmed it for maybe 15 minutes as it followed this deer, just kind of pursuing it. Well, behind it was pursuing it. The marsh, and as it crosses the marsh, I estimate that it's been over 15 miles an hour. And it's incredible footage.
Dave, are you moving around?
No.
Okay, you broke up there as you're telling this story. I want to make sure we got.
Well, I hope I'm not boring you, because I mean, like, this is the footage that is the most intriguing. I considered it hard evidence, but this footage has yet to even be studied. Nobody's ever been to the location. There's basically no research been done on my research. So I don't know I don't know what to do.
So I've seen that video, and I've seen it several times. And so, like, you put that thing out, and like no one even went to try to debunk it or anything? They didn't even research it or nothing? No, they haven't. And I've done lots of television shows over the years, but for the past few years, I've kind of got out of it. I was approached by the Finding Bigfoot, and I don't want to sound demeaning of other people's efforts, but they just don't have the time or the budget. They don't want to get the permits. That show they did in the Everglades was filmed. It wasn't filmed in the Everglades. It was filmed like 50 miles from here. And so many television shows, they don't have the time. And it takes a lot of special permits to film here in the national park. It's very complicated. And so rather than bastardize my research by appearing on cheesy entertainment television shows, I'm more doing podcasts now and stuff like that, because TV is just gotten so bad, quite honestly. Right. I got you. I feel you there. So the 27 photos you got in the 90s, is that available online?
I don't know if it is or not. I mean, yeah, there's pictures that have been posted, but I don't have any up myself that I know of right now. The fire chief nearby took some photographs of a skunk ape too, just prior to that. The Collier County Fire District out here, and those, they're online, but I don't know how to go to them. I wouldn't know how to find them. Right now I could find them, but I don't know what to tell you.
But you still have those 27 photos.
Well, my life has been turned upside down out here. And, it's like going on one of those rides at the fair that swings you around and around and around, and you lose all the stuff out of your pockets and your purse and everything. That's kind of how my life has been. I love the Everglades. It's beautiful out here. But there's been a big push by the national park for many years to remove my family. 1990, they offered me $1 million to leave. Well, as a result of all the problems, my mom and dad died, so I had to go through their stuff, and it's just a long story. But my family is very mistreated by the National Park Service down here. We were supposed to be exempt by the Corps of Engineers in a cultural study, and the park refused to do it. And they just beat the hell out of us, quite honestly. But let's talk about the skunk ape. And that's why I don't have a lot of stuff. I just been beat up.
Okay.
You don't have a whole lot to offer.
I understand. Appreciate the.
I do. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I want to let's keep moving forward with these skunk apes, because I mean you mentioned. I just want to go back on a few things you said already. You said you thought, how many did you think there were in the Everglades?
Well, my estimate, now this is based on sightings that I feel were legitimate. That's not bear sightings. I get sightings I get a lot of people in my place, by the way. I mean, I get hundreds of people come by here weekly during the slow season. That's based on sightings that are reported to me. And if I go to that location and I find tracks, I make a cast. So what I do is I've got different size casts, meaning it's different animals. I mean, that's just elementary stuff. Some of the tracks are about the same, but the distance where they're found and stuff is kind of goes into my figures. So right now, between 7 and 9 is where we're at. That includes the addition lands north of I-75.
So, okay, so then you're talking about 7 to 9 skunk apes, you think, in the Everglades, and you're basing that off of tracks or casts, right?
Yeah, and bedding areas and sightings that, more than one sighting in the same area by different people, depending on the description, yes.
So how many do you think, because you mentioned earlier there were some in Tallahassee and Mayaca, like how many do you think are across the state, and where are they across the state?
Well, they see something regularly in Mayaca, and then I heard you say you're in Fort Myers right now. Now, if you're around back in the 50s and stuff, they called it the Lee County Wild Man. But there's been sightings in Fort Myers as well. Skunk apes swimming across the Caloosahatchee. Most of your large areas, all the way connecting up into Georgia, the Okefenokee, there's sightings. So, but I don't know that much about that because this is where my main focus is. Right. But and that there's very few, and I don't know what the lifespan is of something like this. I would, imagine it would be along the lines of a chimp or a gorilla. So I'm just offhand, I would say we could have as many as 30 here in the state. Possibly. That would be a high number.
So have you ever heard of so I got two friends, Jake and Roy, they live down on Pine Island. You know where that's at?
He's here right now. That's funny. They build cheekies, right?
The what?
Is they build Indian cheekies?
No, they grew up on a Pine Island. They used to tell me that they had to pick mangoes or something in high school, and they swear there was a skunk ape there eating all the mangoes.
All right. I'm getting my cheekies reroofed today, and I got a guy named Jake from Pine Island here doing it. He's an ace, too. Yeah, Pine Island. Now, isn't Pine Island an unusual place? There's sightings down in the Florida Keys on Big Pine Key and on Little Pine Key. There used to be a lot of wild pigs. But the Pine Island up there off Fort Myers, there's, I think it's Boca Chica and Matlacha you go through.
Yeah, Bokeelia, St. James City, and Matlacha.
That has got to be one of the most unique islands on the Florida coast. What island turns that oceanfront property into orchards? It's just orchards everywhere, and banana trees and coke. And it has a lot of animals there. There's tortoises, there's coyotes. There's that key that sits off there out on the point of the Boca Grande Pass there, that national park. So that would be a really good place for something like this to survive. Pine Island is very unique. It would be a good hiding place.
Well, all right. Maybe Jake and Roy were seeing the skunk ape, so I'll let them know. Well, we talked about where else they're at in the state, and I'd be curious, why do you think, why are they so hard to find? Why are they so hard to get on video or a shot of them?
Yeah. Well, for me, we had 30 panthers. We have over 100 cougar panthers here now that they brought in. We've got a big population. They've really putting a hurting on the wildlife. But you don't see panthers every day. There's 100 of them around me. Huh?
You mean the ones they brought in from Texas?
Yeah, they wreaked havoc on the wildlife down here. Where 50,000 wild hogs disappeared over a 5-year period, prey for the panthers. All of our raccoons have been decimated. Freshwater otters, few and far between. The swamps used to be crawling with them. The cats kill them for fun. Wild turkey population down. The Everglades is hurting right now. The cats, big apex predators brought in here, overprotected and overpopulated, turned to eating themselves only a few years back, eating each other. They had eaten the game. So now the population's down to about 100. And it's just very competitive out here, very dangerous in the Everglades. There's a lot of predators here, big gators. But the cats didn't do us any good. The cats, and now the pythons are taking the rap for that. Oh, the pythons are eating everything. Now, whatever cash cow works for Tallahassee, whatever, it's just a big story. We had plenty of cats here before they brought the Cougars in.
Okay, so I have heard about the wildlife and stuff being down, and I was always told it was the pythons, so it's the Cougars.
Well, everybody likes a villain. The wild pig, for instance, is just villainized across the country as being destructive and all of that. But we had wild pigs here, and they weren't a problem. They were fun to hunt. They were good food. They were a part of our lives, and they're gone. But nobody cares about the wild pigs. And now we got pythons here, and actually, right now I'm getting ready. In about 30 minutes, I'll be meeting with a star of the new show, Guardian of the Glades. His name is Dusty Crum, and that's the Discovery special on catching pythons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's my buddy. Dusty's my buddy.
I've read him on Facebook. I've seen it.
Yeah, he's got his camper here at my place right now, and we're getting ready to film some shows with him. But so back to your question, nobody hates the pussycat. Everybody, oh, it's a big cat, isn't it beautiful? Don't hurt the cat. But when it comes to snakes and pigs, nobody cares. The cat is just a cash cow. We got plenty of cats here. We have plenty of cats. A big program, Bleeding Heart, open up your wallets, help the kitty cat. That's all that was. I'm glad everybody pitched in. Now everything's dead down here.
That's too bad.
Well, I got grandkids too, and they say that the Florida Panther has never attacked or killed anybody in Florida. Well, let's take a look at the case, the missing boy at Farm Workers Village. Large cat found nearby just a few days after the boy came up missing. They threw it in the incinerator immediately. They never checked its claws or what was it. They were looking for a boy walking around in the woods, and they weren't looking for a boy buried underneath a pile of leaves. And I talked to the Game Commission, I talked to the Sheriff's Department, and I believe now on that case it does say possible panther. But that kind of information is not being given out to the public because that would villainize the panther or the cougars that they brought in. So, I got kids, grandkids 4 and 5 years old in my front yard. I got cougars all over the place. I got a reason to be a little uptight about it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, that's that cougar thing's. I've heard that for the last few years, but I didn't. Python is the one taking the heat for it from everyone else.
Yeah, it is. Why we're talking about pythons, just so you don't think I'm just like blowing smoke and trying to be some. Because I actually own the second largest snake in the world. I don't know if you knew that or not. And we're going to be measuring it up for the world record here within about 60 days. But I have a python that's over 400 pounds, over 25 feet long, I believe, right now.
Holy cow!
Yeah, he's on display to the public up in my gift shop at the highway. There's people looking at it right now. Probably It's a pretty big deal to have the biggest snake in the world, and to be quite honest with you, I'm proud of it.
Neat. Well, I'll have to stop when we stop by there sometime. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. So and then we're going to be working with a television show on my housing and all. We're fixing to really have a big thing going here with that. And I've been doing pythons for 20 years. I've been raising them, so I had pythons before having pythons was cool and illegal, and it is illegal to have them. You have to be licensed.
All right.
I raised man-eaters.
Well, we missed the one part. Why do you think the skunk apes, we got off on the tangent about the cougars and the pythons.
Yeah.
Why do you think they're not seen that often?
Well, if you want to know why they're not seen, it's because this is a large area, and it's just nobody here to look. The other day I was in an area that nobody'd been in 40 years. So it's just a huge area. Now, they do see in Myakka, I mean, it's almost annually a report of somebody seeing something up in Myakka. So to say they're not seen that often isn't really accurate. They are seen quite often, I believe.
Oh, okay. Maybe the better question, I guess in today's era with cell phones, everyone has a camera on them almost all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just curious, and there's very few instances of seeing a clear picture, or a.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I get pictures from game cams. Hunters bring me pictures from game cams all the time with pictures of skunk apes on it. I see them all the time. I mean, 2 or 3 hunters a year will come in and say, look what passed in front of my trail camera. So, I mean, yeah, the pictures aren't the problem. Everybody's taking pictures. There's a lot of pictures and a lot of good pictures out there. So once again, I mean, just a lot of evidence, but none of it is really being looked into.
Where do these pictures go? Are they anywhere online?
No, they're mostly the property of the people who get the pictures on their game cam, and they share them with their friends and stuff like that. But I mean, there's really not a whole lot done with them. But somebody brought some in the other day and was showing me. They were just incredible.
Yeah. They need to put them online so we can all see them.
Well, I would hope that they would, I think that they're wanting me to call the newspaper and get their pictures printed in the newspaper. I mean, I get a feeling that's why they come to talk to me, but I don't have that kind of power. I'm not Donald Trump. I can't call the Naples Daily News and start, pushing them around like they're my punks or something.
Right.
Put this in your paper now. I don't, so all I do mainly is I just look at them. I've been doing this a long time and say, those are beautiful pictures. Congratulations.
Yeah, you should get a hat that says, make Skunk Ape great again. That should be your slogan.
Oh, God. That's funny. You're funny. I didn't know you were a comedian.
Yeah. My wife tells me I'm not, so there you go. Hey, so what about what do skunk apes eat then?
Well, skunk apes are omnivores. So, it's a real wide spectrum. For me to go through everything that they eat, it'd be kind of difficult. They eat roots and berries and worms and bugs, and they eat fish and wild hogs, and they eat just like a black bear, very resilient animal, very tough animal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, we touched on the pythons for a second, but even with cougars, I guess, what's happening to the skunk apes food supply? Have you noticed them moving differently or what?
No, not really. The water's been high the past few months, so I really haven't spent much time in the bush, but I can tell you that the pond apples just fell in the swamps this past month. I was out in a canoe, and it's kind of wild. Pond apples are a pretty big fruit. They're about the size of a mango, and along the edge of the cypress swamps, there's just thousands of trees, and they hang there, yellow, flop into the water when they're out here. And so we do canoe tours. We have guides that live here, and we go on the river nearby. And the guides were telling me this past month that they heard a lot of big animals moving off on the edges around those pond apple trees. So that's what they just ate now. So they're not really on the wildlife diet. The acorns are starting to fall. They're formed and starting to fall down here. They'll eat acorns. So like I said, they're omnivores. The fish, the water's so fish down here, I call it fish soup. As the water starts dropping, the fish get thicker and thicker. And I mean, there's just so many fish. So there's plenty of food for them.
Okay.
Skunk apes are omnivores, and there's roots. So no, I don't think that the panthers or the pythons would have any effect whatsoever on the skunk apes, other than adding a little bit of food. Now I heard they got an 18-foot python recently nearby me, and now that's a strong snake, and it could possibly take a small skunk ape, or maybe a large one. I don't know how aggressive they are when they're being attacked. But the big python is a deadly animal. The big one that I have is as dangerous as any tiger or anything. I mean, we've got 6 locks cage. So, I imagine that maybe it's added a little bit of danger. I think that the python's actually eating some of these panthers. God bless them. Finally, something's getting them. But I think that some of these panthers are being taken by the pythons. I think that's pretty obvious.
Right. So what about I'd be curious as well, since you were born and raised, you guys have been there forever. What are some of like the legendary tales from like Indians, or do you have anything that sticks out, like where skunk ape they back in the the 1800s or anything like that?
Yeah, the stories. Well, we'll go through a few of them. One of the stories that I remember vividly is Raymond Wooten. There's an airboat tour down here. He's passed away, and the place is called Wooten's Airboat Rides. But Raymond had alligators, and this was back in the day when alligators were considered endangered. I imagine in the 60s. He had a little airplane, and he'd fly around over the marshes and prairies behind my house, for 80 miles. And he would see the alligators in ponds out in the open marsh. And then he would land his airplane in the grassland, capture the alligator, tie it to the struts, and fly it back to the airboat ride. And that's how he got his alligators. Well, I knew Raymond, and Raymond told me, he said, I was up in the plains with gators. He said, I seen something running down on the marsh. And he had a little J-3 plane. So I think they could fly like 65 miles an hour, which that's slow for a plane. And he said he circled around it and where he could see it, and he got a good look at it. And it was just running on 2 legs across the marsh. And it said it got to one of these alligator holes where he was catching alligators and dove into the water. And he circled for a long time. It never came back up. And so I remember that story, and I use that story in my research because I believe what he was telling me was true. And today I walk the swamps during the dry season and visit alligator ponds. And as they dry up, there's actually caves that go back into the bank, and the alligators actually go underground. A lot of people might not know that. A lot of people will know that. But during our droughts down here, alligators go beneath the ground. And skunk apes also use these caves during the dry season. So that back to how they hide so good. There you go. And so that's one story that I find to be true based on my research. Another story. Okay, some hunters are sitting out in the Everglades. They're in the hunting camp. The sun's gone down. They're cooking beans on the stove. They got a little stove and a chimney sticking up. It's dark. Big oak tree grows over the cabin. So they're kind of getting ready for dinner, but they're playing a game of cards. And they're all sitting at the dining table in this cabin playing cards, and they got a lantern sitting there. All of a sudden, a skunk ape had climbed up in that oak tree out on the limb over that cabin. I guess he's smelling that food cooking. Fell off the limb and came right through the roof of the cabin and landed right in the middle of the table. And went crazy. They said it ripped up everything in the camp. knocked a lantern down. They were afraid it was going to start a fire, so they beat it down, and then they got the flashlight out. But by the time they did, it had taken the end wall out of the cabin and disappeared into the woods. So that was kind of an exciting story, you know. But I believe that story to be true because I went to where that cabin was, and the wall was still down on that end. They never went back. So you hear these stories, and I mean, I could go on and on. I'm real good friends with the Indians, and that's putting it lightly. I hear a lot of the Indian stories about the skunk ape. One of the stories that sticks out in my mind, and the Indians visit me daily. I haven't seen one in the last couple of days, but I'm expecting one in a moment. So they were fighting a war. They were pushed down here. You know, there were 200 Seminole Indians living in the woods next to my house, and the Army said, "Oh, there's hardly any of them left down there." And it was a really expensive war, and it was the most costly in lives and money in American history. But when the Army pulled out, there were 200 living in the bushes behind my house. I mean, a skunk ape to hide is not a big deal, really. Okay, so the Indians are fighting. They come down here to the Everglades. They got no food. They got hardly any clothes. They're just running, basically. And they get here, and they're trying to regroup and figure out what they're going to do to defend themselves. And one of the Indians comes and he says that he found these skunk apes living out in a hammock in the marsh. And so they decide amongst themselves to send a member back into the forest where he saw this skunk ape, communicate with them and see if they would be of any assistance in fighting alongside them. See, at that point, they had a lot of escaped slaves and outlaws. There was the Seminoles, but they had friends. They made friends. They helped people, and people helped them. So they went to the hammock where the skunk apes were, and the guy said he found them, and they were there, and that he tried his best to communicate with them, but that they were totally, they couldn't understand. There was a communications breakdown, and there was no communications at all. And that was the story when he came back to the camp and told the Indians, yes, I found them. I tried to talk to them. I couldn't. And that was the story. So that's kind of interesting, too.
Yeah, that sounds like a great also movie plot. If they were able to get, you know, skunk apes to jump in and help them fight, and then they all attack, that'd be a great movie.
Planet of the Apes, kind of like.
Yeah,
Planet of the Skunk Ape.
Yeah, Planet of the Apes meets Dances with Wolves. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. And they take me to the reservations, and I grew up with the elders. When I was young, the Indians grew like to 100 years old was real common among the Indian women. And so those are the people I grew up around. And they would always tell me, I was up on the north side of Lake Ochopee the other day on the Brighton Indian Reservation. And an Indian told me the story that he had seen a skunk ape in their cow pastures there. Man, they have a lot of cows. And so I get a lot of stories all the time. I love it. I love to listen. It's, you know, it's a great way to spend the day.
Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing those stories. Just a couple more quick questions, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
How does this skunk ape then migrate? Like, how does it travel? Is it a migratory animal?
Well, yeah. The majority of the mammals that live here in the Everglades are migratory. Now, we're not talking the migration of the wildebeest, but we do have a wet and a dry season here. And when the water's up, they more or less migrate out of the swamp, get out on the prairies and into the pinelands. And when the water's down, they migrate back in. So in that respect, there's some migration. I believe that the males might venture further. there's a lot of underpasses under I-75, Corkscrew Sanctuary, part of a corridor project for cougars and wildlife to keep the genes and stuff spread out and allow them to roam freely. And I believe they use some of those routes as well as golf courses, community parks, anything they can find, any way to get around. There's bears. Anywhere there's bears, there could be a skunk ape. They see bears in the edge of Naples. They see bears around Lake Okeechobee. We have thousands of bears here. And they travel the same way. They probably got routes that they take.
Gotcha. How about anything else unexplained down there in the Everglades? You ever seen anything else? Like, I don't want to turn into an alien show or nothing, but, aliens, any other kind of...
No, that's fine. Go right ahead. I grew up here in the Everglades airboating, and this is internationally accredited place for viewing the stars because we don't have any of the lights around us. It's like totally dark out here, and with no moon right now. I'll be out tonight in the national park, and the stars are so beautiful, and you can just see forever. And I've seen so many things in the sky, but I've never seen a UFO, unfortunately, and I don't know if they exist or not, but I think there's a probability that they very well may. But no, nothing like that going on out here. Not that I know of. I wish there was.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, hey, Dave, that was awesome. I really appreciate your time. And I'll give you a heads up. I'll get my kids down there one day. We'll check out. Maybe my wife will go. We'll check out your place down there. Okay.
Well, I hope that was okay for you. Really?
This? What we just talked about?
Yeah.
I had a blast.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I hope it all works out for you. God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you and your wife. And we're real kid friendly here. Try to give me a heads up when you're coming. Okay, yeah. Did you have anything else you want to talk about? I'm here for you if you do. No, I'm okay. I mean, we do a lot here. We have lodging and campsites, and we have our animal exhibit. We're fixing to go like really big here. I mean, everything is just falling into place. I've got a lot of workers here today. And by big, I mean we're putting in a heritage museum, a Everglades heritage museum with swamp buggies and airboats and the culture of the Everglades and stuff like that. All good stuff. I run a very natural park. If you come in here, you'll feel like you're camping in the woods. The campsites are large. We offer, discounts on our canoes and stuff, and we deliver them and pick you up, whatever you want to do. We do a lot here. Oh, cool. Well, I'll put your site and all the contact information into the post. So if anyone wants to go down and check you out, man, we'll make sure we make it easy for them. Okay. Yeah, and try to give me a heads up if you're coming down. I'll try and make it a point to get with you and show you my tracks or something. Okay. Oh yeah, that'd be great. I'll do that for sure, Dave. Okay. Okay, Tim. Thank you for your time. Well, David, hey, appreciate you. Thank you very much. And you guys out there, make sure you get out and check out David Shealy and his museum and all that fun stuff. We'll put that information into the body of the post. And remember, if you know anyone that's interested in skunk ape or Bigfoot or enjoys this type of topic, make sure you share this with them and they can hear David's story and look him up on YouTube. You got a lot of cool stuff out there. So, Dave, appreciate you, man. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Tim. Have a good one, buddy. You too. Bye-bye. Bye.